Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money,
Dollar, 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 dollar.
money, 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 money.
They see it, they see it.
Money, 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 money.
What they want, money. Global dollar, dollar. And roll without fitting. Just a wild, smelling fresh and looking spiffy. Don't like clean money, I want my bank to be fuzzy. Plus with every time it's fun, I can't touch it. I'm sick, so what am I supposed to do? Roll and do. Set it back in the pocket, tell them like a hold and do. Ching, ching, bling, bling. Catch it cash and lump.
There are a lot of confusing things in this world. Math, computers, your ex-girlfriend. But now the world has a new confusing thing that is somewhat difficult to understand. And it's this motherfucking character. This fucking zesty ass goddamn motherfucking out. Okay, in hindsight, it's not that hard to understand. I mean, considering I spent a long time trying to figure out how he fucking works. He's really fun. He's really strong. Not as strong as the red panda, like holy shit, dude. But still really strong. His primary skill is pretty mediocre at first. His primary skills and secondary skill correlate with each other and are basically required. In order to actually get any value out of your primary skill, you need to actually, by random chance, get the right combo when casting your secondary skill, which will either create a normal, rare, or legendary Astro House, as it's called. And each one has their own attributes and what they do, and it's bizarre. It can even be a wild card one, which are considered legendary, but you can still get the same effect if it's a third slot. So this is like where it gets a little odd, but very easily understandable once you actually figure it out. So the chances of getting a normal, rare, or legendary Astro House is dependent on a certain percentage, and you start out with at least like 50 on normal, and everything else is like around 10 to 20s, with the wild being just 1% usually. This can be changed depending on what kind of occult scrolls you have. So if you have like a bunch of rare scrolls, the chances of you getting a rare Astro House increases. Now, that in itself is a pretty interesting concept, but it gets better. So if you upgrade his talents or whatever in the skill tree, he will be given the ability to either upgrade or reset his scrolls. Now I'm gonna get into that, what that means. So first, resets. You start out with one in every run, and you can obtain one more chance to reset every ascension you obtain. So every level, every stage you go through. So essentially, you can get a completely new scroll, either the same quality or higher. And it could be a massive game changer for if you get scrolls that are not useful to you or just completely useless. And you can only do it one time per scroll. And no, you can't reset your teammates' scrolls. It only applies to your own that you have picked up, not your teammates. Unfortunately, I've already tested this. It doesn't work. Now, the ability to upgrade your scrolls. So what upgrading means is that it upgrades the quality of the scroll without actually changing its properties. So essentially, if you have a normal scroll, and it's automatic too. It depends on your strategy, which there are 3 options, and I'll get to that in a bit. If you were to have a normal scroll, you can have the ability to have it be seen as a legendary and add that to your percentage of a legendary Astro House. Now there are 3 options that you have for your upgrade strategy. And again, this is automatic. Now, by default, you have normal least, which is basically trying to have upgrading scrolls to at least rare or legendary, whatever it takes to make the normal rarity less. There are also rare most, which it upgrades scrolls to make it all look rare, basically making rare the highest Astro House rarity. Or you can have legendary most, which is something you should do late game or late in a run. You start out with 3 slots in your Astro House. You can get more from an ascension, but that's not important right now. If all 3 are a normal, it does the base primary skill damage, but then instantly doubles it. If you get all 3 rare, it does the same thing, but extends the range and does a little bit more damage. If you get all 3 legendaries or wild, it does the same thing as rare, but does extremely more damage and consistently shoots down in the area while also slowing down any enemies that are in the range, basically making an area of constant damage. Now personally, I have used this ability, specifically the legendary Astro House, in a more defensive way, considering how long it lasts, constantly shooting damage and slows enemies. It literally is a good crowd control, and if you need like a pathway blocked and if enemies go through it, they'll die and get slowed down. It can be used as a straight up defensive maneuver, but it can also be used as offensive, of course, if you use it on bosses, for example. Now, if you were to use the primary skill when you don't have all three, but you have like a mixture of, like, let's say 2 rare, but one of them is normal, it creates an impure Astro House, which basically does the base damage and does nothing else. It's just basic primary skill. Now, most times you don't want to use your primary skill if it's just an impure Astro House. But there are also some times where it can be useful sometimes just to get like quick damage, as an example. And the way to obtain these they're called Astro Specs. The way to obtain these is by using your secondary skill, Astro Forecast. Astro Forecast summons 3 cards and creates an Astro Spec into your Astro House. I know this is sounding really confusing, but just stick with me. So you summon 3 cards and gain an Astro Spec. The 3 cards can be used either offensively or defensively, but mostly offensive, let's be honest. It automatically shoots to any enemies that are within 7 meters, or shoots 1 time per second at any enemy you're looking at. And there's a thing in this talent tree where the more cards you shoot out, the higher the amount gets shoot out when you're looking at an enemy. Basically, like doubling or tripling damage. Now, when it comes to the possible builds that you can do with this character, personally, I have the most fun and the most success making a build centered around his secondary skill, or Astro Forecast, which there are ascensions where he increases the amount of cards that he summons, the amount of cards he has on reserve, which will be shown underneath his secondary skill, and basically the amount of damage that they can do. Now, there are builds that you can do centered around his primary skill, or just a mix between, but like it's still really, really good. I did a build where I had his primary skill be as powerful as possible, and like with the right scrolls and ascensions picked, it can be really, really powerful, and it can be used in a variety of ways, given the right percentage of your chances of a good Astro House, mostly legendary. No, it is ridiculously fun. This character is ridiculously fun. This character is honestly like my new main in this game. I don't usually ever main any characters in any other video game that I played, usually. I even went out of my way to unlock this character's frame, which can be unlocked by playing through Nightmare solo by only using 1 rarity of scrolls. And it's not easy, especially when they figured out that it doesn't count upgraded scrolls. Yeah, that was fun. It took me like about 4 tries-ish, but I did manage to get it, and I am proud to be one of the first to get it. And that is it for now. I hope you enjoyed watching my quick overview of a character in a video game that I've barely even touched on this channel. It's really late right now, and as I'm recording this, and I'm very tired, so that's why I sound blech. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, at the very least. I'll probably do more Gunfire related content sometime, I don't know, but I'm kind of in a state where I'm not really sure what I want to do. But either way, have a good one.